Predator in Uniform, the story of Mikhail Popkov. For nearly 2 decades, a quiet terror stalked the streets of Angarsk, a city hidden deep in the icy expanse of Siberia. The streets were familiar, the people tight-knit, the silence comfortable, until it wasn't. Murmurs began to rise, women were vanishing. Bodies appeared in forests and snowbanks, broken and discarded like afterthoughts. No suspect emerged, no pattern was clear. The city's trust in law and order remained, because who could imagine that the killer wore a badge? Mikhail Popkov was a husband, a father, a police officer. He helped people across the street, posed for family photographs, and patrolled neighborhoods meant to feel safe. But beneath the veneer of duty and respectability lived something else. Something cold, calculating, and deeply disturbed. This is the story of how a man became a monster, how a city was betrayed by its protector, and how the truth, when it finally surfaced, shattered the illusion of safety that had cloaked Angarsk in dangerous comfort for years. Part 1: The Making of a Killer. Mikhail Viktorovich Popkov was born in March 1964 in Norilsk, one of the coldest and most isolated cities in the Russian Arctic. From an early age, those around him noticed a quiet, reserved boy, obedient, unremarkable, always watching. His family background was troubled. His father was reportedly authoritarian and his mother emotionally distant. These early conditions, while not unusual in Soviet-era households, may have contributed to what would later emerge as a deeply fractured psyche. As a young man, Popkov joined the Soviet police, quickly earning a post in the Siberian city of Angarsk. He married Elena, a school teacher, and they had a daughter. Outwardly, he was the model citizen, disciplined, dependable, and ordinary. But ordinary masks can hide the deepest abnormalities. Popkov's crimes began in 1992 during a period of national upheaval. The Soviet Union had just collapsed, and the Russian Federation was descending into economic and social chaos. Law enforcement was underfunded, overwhelmed, and under pressure. In that environment, Popkov found the perfect camouflage for his escalating desires. His victims were almost always women, some walking home alone, others leaving parties or bars late at night. Many had no idea their killer was offering them a ride in a police car in uniform under the guise of protection. To them, he was safety. To him, they were prey. He targeted women he judged as morally loose, claiming he was cleansing society. In reality, his crimes were not ideological, but deeply personal, an extension of his need for control, power, and dominance. Each act became more violent than the last, and he left behind scenes that stunned even the most hardened forensic teams, and yet no one suspected him. Part 2: Years of Silence. For over 15 years, the murders continued. Bodies turned up in forests, ditches, and frozen wastelands. Some were found with remnants of alcohol in their systems, which was often used to discredit the victims or dismiss the cases as crimes of opportunity. But something was wrong. Too many victims, too many similarities. Investigators suspected a serial killer, but there were few leads. Popkov, still working in law enforcement during many of the early murders, had access to case files. He knew how to mislead. He knew how investigations worked. And when he left the force in the late 90s, he continued his killing spree, now emboldened by the years of impunity. In 2012, the tide finally turned. Russian authorities launched a nationwide DNA sweep targeting men connected to unsolved murders. Popkov was among those asked to submit a sample. He did so without hesitation, confident he would remain invisible. But DNA doesn't lie. The match came quickly. Popkov was arrested quietly. His wife and daughter were stunned. Neighbors couldn't believe it. But when questioned, Popkov didn't deny it. Instead, he confessed, first to 22 murders, then 30, then more. Each time he was brought back into the interrogation room, his memory became clearer, the number larger. By the time investigators had pieced everything together, Popkov had admitted to over 80 murders. Some reports suggest the number could exceed 100. His memory was disturbingly accurate. He recalled details, locations, dates, and even emotions with clinical precision. In several cases, he led police to bodies that had never been found. Part 3: Justice Cold and Incomplete. In 2015, Mikhail Popkov was sentenced to life in prison for 22 murders. By 2018, after further confessions, a second life sentence was added for an additional 56 murders. He is now incarcerated in a high-security prison nicknamed the Black Dolphin, a remote fortress in Russia's Orenburg region reserved for the nation's most dangerous criminals. But for many families, the justice came too late. Some never found their daughters. Others had buried their loved ones years before, never knowing the truth. And almost all were forced to reckon with the fact that the man who had murdered their child had once been sworn to protect them. Popkov's arrest also forced a national reckoning within Russian law enforcement. How had a police officer committed dozens of murders under their nose? How had his psychological evaluations, internal reviews, and early suspicions failed to flag him? The answers were uncomfortable: corruption, bureaucracy, and a dangerous over-reliance on authority. Today, Angarsk still remembers. Memorials have been placed. Children born after the crimes grew up with stories of the Angarsk maniac. And Popkov's daughter, who once believed her father was a hero, has tried to move on with her life, burdened with a legacy she never asked for. Thank you for listening to this story. It is one that weighs heavily, not just because of the violence or the staggering numbers, but because of what it reveals about human nature, about institutions, and about how evil can hide in the most familiar faces. Mikhail Popkov did not come from the shadows. He walked among the people. He smiled. He served. He wore the uniform of trust. And that is what makes this story unforgettable. Because sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not those we see coming. They are the ones who open the door, offer you help, and drive you into the dark.